Hello, everybody. This is Carlos Young, and this is going to be our inaugural video for the Young, Gifted, and Black Academy. What is the Young, Gifted, and Black Academy? Our aim is quite simply to learn and teach at least 1,000 Black men and women to be wealthy. Because it is our belief that when we cause ourselves to be wealthy, then we can attain true freedom. Now, I quickly have to say that any discussion about the plight of Black people, particularly the plight of Black people in the United States, but indeed the plight of Black people throughout the diaspora. I'm just going to lean on the United States today, though. We have to talk about white supremacy and racism because it is an overshadowing reason that we find ourselves in the state that we are in today. What state? The state where we are at $1,700 net worth as Black families. We're at $5 net worth for the single Black woman. This is opposed with $170,000 of net worth for the dominant society and more than $40,000 of net worth for single non-Black women. So this always has to be a backdrop. We didn't cause ourselves to be in this land. We didn't cause ourselves to be in 400 plus years of oppression. But it appears that we're going to have to cause ourselves to get out of it. And others along the way have helped us. Our beloved Sister Harriet. Oh boy, so many to mention. So many to mention. The reason why I was compelled to make this video today was because of ShaCarri Richardson. ShaCarri Richardson is a bad sister. Oh, she's so fast. She's an athlete. She's a beautiful Black woman. And as of yesterday, she has come under great fire. As of July 1st, she finds herself having to apologize for taking what they call academic enhancing drugs or performance enhancing drugs, and the drug of choice was marijuana. And I wrote a Facebook post yesterday and I talked about how I just want to stand in support of this young woman, this young 21-year-old woman, knowing that when I was 21, I made some suboptimal choices, and I just want to stand with her. I want to support her. I want to advocate for Miss ShaCarri Richardson. There were some comments that were right in line with what I was saying. And there are other comments that were counter to what I was saying. Now, I don't mind comments counter to what I'm saying. This is not me being overly sensitive. This is me being disappointed. Because I find something very sinister at play here. It appears that the Black woman can have no advocate. If she falls, I mean, we have some different set of rules for the Black woman. It just was weird in the same week where a known rapist, by his own admission, there was like some celebratory stance as it related to Bill Cosby. And there's court documents. You're welcome to look them up. There's court documents. There's testimony. There's conspicuously similar testimony of the victimized. But yet we celebrate him and we denigrate ShaCarri Richardson. It's like the rules only apply to Black women and men, but in that order. So there is some weird kind of patriarchy at play. But I find it notable, most of the untoward comments towards Miss Richardson, or the unsympathetic, unempathetic comments, it didn't come from Black males, didn't come from the patriarchy, if you will. It came from Black women. I want to read something for you, because I always want to, everything that we talk about on this channel, I wanted to be rigored in research. Fantastic sister, Dr. Joy DeGruy, wrote this book. It's called The Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And in this book, she talks about how she took a trip back to Africa, and she talks about the Sankofa bird and how it's important for us to go back. And then she talks about the things that she learned about this seeing of one another, how it is important in South African culture, in this case, that we see one another. It's in the dialect, it's in the language. I see you. And then she contrasted this with incidents in the U.S. where we say things like, who you looking at? Who you looking like? Like there's this detachment from one another that we play into. And I think it was at play with this ShaCarri Richardson. We don't see her as our daughter or as our sister. We're somehow detached from her. Because I think if we did see her as our daughter, as our sister, then we would be more empathetic. And I submit to you that the reason, and that's why we started everything with this unfortunate basis that we found ourselves in the United States, the enslavement. So that's why I'm coming to the Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome book. I'm going to read, and God, I hope it's okay. Dr. Joy DeGruy, if I owe you anything for reading from your book, let me know. I'm happy to pay you. I have about 5 copies of your book on the shelf, but hey, we don't want to owe anybody. And sister, we know you put a great and mighty work in place here. But I'm going to go ahead and read this. This is for educational purposes, so I think we're going to be okay with any copyrights. If we're not, though, Dr. Joy DeGruy, please let us know. We want to be right. I'm on page 5 in Dr. Joy DeGruy's book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, if you can see it here. Then there was a time at the local bank when I arrived. I noticed there were lots of people in line and waiting to see a teller. There was a Black mother in the bank, as I turn the page, with 3 small children. The children were standing close to their mother, so close, in fact, they were actually holding onto her legs. Occasionally, one of the children would become curious about something or someone in the bank and attempted to explore the object or person. However, any effort to leave the mother's side resulted in a sharp verbal chastisement and a snap of her fingers, admonishing the child to immediately get back to her side. In the same line toward the back, there was another mother standing in line waiting for an available teller, only she was white. The white mother also had several small children, close in age to the Black mother's children. The mother had her hands full trying to stay in line while her little boy wandered about, skipping, twirling, rolling on the floor, asking questions of the bank security guard. The white mother did not insist that her children stand by her side. Instead, she tried to keep an eye on them and apologized to people in line whom her children were annoying. I remember when I was a child, being in a bank and other places of business with my mother and experiencing the same phenomenon of watching the white kids play while my mother insisted that I stay near her. Watching the repeat of this experience, I wondered how the little Black girl who stood in the bank line felt while she watched the white boy run and play in the bank. I suspect she felt a number of emotions: fear of the consequences she might receive from disobeying her mother, shame from the curious looks of her white peers, anger at not being able to move about freely. Without explicitly saying so, the black mother sent a message to her children, and the message was, little white children can safely run and play, but you cannot because it is not okay or safe for you. These expectations teach black children that somehow this world does not belong to black boys and girls. It belongs to little white children. Eventually, a teller became available and the black mother approached the counter. This was the perfect time for the little black girl to escape. She began sliding down the length of the counter, hidden from her mother's sight, because she was just small enough to fit underneath the overhanging counter. It was then that the little black girl felt free to explore, a natural tendency for children at her developmental stage, but she was faced with another dilemma. There was another black mother waiting in line who saw her down beneath the counter, out of her mother's vision. Then the other black mother did something that is all too familiar to African American children. She gave the little attempted escapee the black mother's death stare. Try to give it. I'm not a black mother, so I'm not good at it. but those of you who are black mothers and who were born of black mothers, I'm sure you know the death stare. And she did the stare and gestured with a slight move of her head for her to return to her mother's side. The little black girl immediately recognized the signal, looked defeated, lowered her head, and reluctantly returned to her mother's side. The proxy black mother smiled contentedly because she had successfully and non-verbally reinforced the unspoken rule that little black children cannot move about and stray. This was not a place for them to explore. Moreover, it is a world that belongs to little white boys and girls and those like them who freely and contentedly may stroll about banks and other places of importance, oblivious to any possible threat or limitation. There's so much to glean from that. Thank you, Dr. Joy. The one thing I want to talk about as it relates to the ShaCarri Richardson situation is that when I read through the different Facebook posts, there was an overwhelming comment over and over again from those who didn't quite empathize with her. The rules are the rules. 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 And that's why I want to tie this channel, tie this effort, tie this academy back to wealth. Because the golden rule says that he who has the gold makes the rules. You see, I don't teach our children all of this structure. You can't go here, you can't go there. And I certainly don't say things like, you got to be twice as good to get half as, oh my God, I don't. We have got to stop that slave talk, y'all. We got to stop it. Rules are rules, rules are rules, rules are... We have got to stop it. Hello? School is in. Then I know what you'll say. I know. You'll say, well, who are you? What gives you the right to teach? You're speechifying. Look, I don't know what to do anymore. If I don't say anything, then it's, well, why wouldn't you help the black man, help the black woman? My boyfriend, my husband, all my life I've heard, well, can you talk to my husband? Can you talk to my boyfriend? Can you talk to my son? Yes, I can. Can you talk to my daughter? Can you talk to my wife? Can you talk to... Yeah, I can. And I do. But then at the same time, who do you think you are? What gives you the right? What do you want? What do you want? So now, you know what? I'm just going to do what I believe I have been gifted to do, which is to teach my people how to acquire freedom through wealth. I'm pointing to the mind for a reason, because wealth has to do with health. And you notice I really didn't talk a lot of figures and dollars and how to invest. I'm talking about mental health right now. Because if we can't see that our overzealous, we're so zealous about the rules. Now we become Johnny Cochran as it relates to the Olympic rules. Like, who knew that all these black people knew the rules of this upcoming Olympiad? The rules. Really? You know the rules of Olympics now? Then I tried to make a parallel about kind of like what Dr. Joy DeGruy did here, how she's using an allegory, she's using an example of how the white little girl lived in freedom, and then the black little girl from her mother and from the surrogate mother was rule-based. These are the rules, whatever rules that there were in that bank about children, they probably applied to the white children too, right? But look how the white parent handled it. They were allowed to explore more. Oh, now you're saying that we get to break the law. No. Don't hear that. What I'm saying is there is always room to navigate even within rules. How do we know that? Well, hell, Michael Phelps smoked weed. Lochte smoked weed. And somehow the rules didn't apply to them. But then when I said that, 6 months, now you... When I said that, then our folks, now we became like CSI or something. We was like in a basement. Folks got a timeline. No, it was 6 months after. He didn't put the doobie. Don't make this a doobie. He didn't put the doobie in his mouth until 6 months after. But during the swimming campaign, really? So now you're an Olympic attorney, and you're a crime scene investigator to prove that Phelps and Lochte were not, they didn't break the rules the way our sister ShaCarri broke the rules. It just was tiring. It just was tiring. The point I'm trying to make is that there are rules, certainly. But then there's also ways to navigate where the rules aren't what confine you. And then I'll tell you this. There's levels to this stuff. You get to certain levels, you get to make the rules. I mean, that's all laws are. You know, someone made those laws, right? Different conversation for a different day. Listen, this is an urging for you to, let's dialogue. Let's get better. This is a somewhat complex deal that we're talking about, an expansion of rules, freedom, not to be oppressed by what we perceive as the only way to be. These rules within a bank, these rules within an Olympiad, these rules. To the point where I don't even know how we even move through life. We constrict ourselves so much. I want us to learn how to have more grace with each other and more freedom. And that's what we're going to be dealing with in the days and weeks to come. Because I gave you the Dr. DeGruy's research. I want to deal with a new theory from my experience and from dealing with this ShaCarri Richardson situation yesterday. And we're too detached from one another. Somehow, if you follow that same example that Dr. Joy gave, there was somehow that mother almost objectified her child, like she is a thing to be disciplined, handled, and this young lady has to fit within this space. And then came the surrogate mother, the same thing. Like it's a weird concept, y'all. But and those who are sociologists or those who have different experience, let's dialogue with it. But to me, it is a detached attachment. Certainly, that was her daughter, but she had some kind of detachment to her, where she almost objectified her daughter in the bank. She is a thing that requires discipline. She's not a human to be free. Dr. Joy DeGruy speaks of it coming from enslavement, where if you didn't, if you didn't hold on to your child, if you didn't discipline them, then they could be taken from you. So she paints the picture that it comes from that. I'm painting the picture that we're detached from the ShaCarri Richardsons and others of the world. We're detached from them because they're only an object of our entertainment. They're fine as long as they're entertaining us. But as soon as they become human, then we want to detach from them. And then I wonder if we're doing that to Miss Richardson, are we doing that in our families? Is there a cousin, a brother, an uncle, or someone in the family that smoked weed, sold weeds, did drugs, sold? Is there someone that we're throwing away in our family that way? That we're somehow detached from them too now? That ain't freedom, y'all. And that's something that we need to deal with. And we will in the coming months. But for today, thank you for hanging out with me. There'll be more to come. So many more things to discuss. I would encourage you to not be the bringer of the laws and the rules as it relates to this young 21-year-old Miss ShaCarri Richardson, but be the bringer of grace and love. And that's what I extend to you. Grace and love to you all.